Hey, this is Lou Mangello from WDW Radio, and you're listening to the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. Let's do this.
The tangents as we continue all the way to episode 394, Fiveish Fangirls podcast. And imagine you're just living your life in New York City, going to work, getting stuff to eat, just doing the day-to-day thing when all of a sudden, murder. What are you gonna do?
Who did it?
What do? You record, make a podcast, of course. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. So glad you joined us. Let's start off like a virtual table and see who joined us this week.
This is Brittany in Belvedere.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Thought I had that phone shut off, but no,
Yeah.
Surprise! Quick mute and unmute.
Yeah. Hopefully everyone had a safe and happy Halloween and you don't have too much of a tummy ache.
Uh-huh.
Surprisingly enough, I do have some leftover candy. Not a whole lot. But
Yay.
I do have some candy left over, which, considering I already have a couple of cavities that need filling, why not? Keep my dentist employed. All right. Well, let's do the news. Not a whole lot of news, but some interesting news coming out of different parts of the interwebs. First up, apparently Warner Brothers / DC have decided that they're just gonna throw a Hail Mary. I don't know. As far as trying to get the whole DC EU thing upright, back on track, recalibrated, I don't know. We've had several discussions about what we think is going on over there, and I think they've been having the same thing. So DC, first off, has decided to first of all create a whole new division. Is DC Films as we know it gone in the trash. We now have DC Studios, and it is going to be this is going to cover film, TV, and animation. But to head the whole thing is going to be Peter Safran, who is a producer, and James Gunn.
Mm-hmm.
So Safran is going to focus on the business and production side. And then James Gunn is going to focus on the creative side of things. So yeah, and supposedly this is a 4-year deal. And James Gunn is now going to be exclusively working with DC.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, does this mean he's done doing anything from MCU?
At least for the time being. That seems to be the case. So yeah, it's I mean it's a bit of a loss as far as the MCU is concerned, because obviously James Gunn, very talented. The Guardians, anything Guardians has been fantastic. But at the same time, he did sweep in to do the soft reboot, I'm doing very big air quotes, of the Suicide Squad, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Because it is very James Gunn-esque.
Oh yeah.
So and then of course that spun off the Peacemaker TV series, which I've not watched, but is supposedly supposed to be really, really good. So it's not that he is going into handling the DC stuff without first proving he knows his way around at least some of the DC characters. But yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting twist, I guess, that nobody really saw coming. But yeah, at the same time, it's not like we aren't hurting for other stuff in the MCU that other people are handling. So, but yeah, I guess we'll see if James Gunn can help turn the DC EU around, because the whole thing's kind of a hot mess. It has its bits and pieces where it's like, oh, this isn't bad. This is halfway decent. And then you end up with other things where you're just like, what?
I will admit, having James Gunn there, it's making me like, I might actually make an attempt to go see these movies and see those, because
I've seen several comments like that where people are all like, oh, I might actually pay attention to the DC stuff. Which I think says a lot about where DC has been going recently.
right?
So, oh my. So, good luck. That being said, you can get we can have we've got our first look at James Gunn's next entry, I guess, into the MCU, because we have our first look at the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, which will be dropping sooner than you might think, because it's now November.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah. So yeah, we got our the next Marvel special presentation, as they've been calling them. First we had Werewolf by Night, now we've got this. And if you like to play 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, the degrees on which you will need to connect him to people in the MCU has now shrunk.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. I'd like to name that in OneNote.
Yeah. Well, it depends on who in the
Game
MCU you're talking about.
Game show
yes.
reference here.
Yeah. So yeah, apparently this holiday season will be filled with laughter and merriment and attempted kidnapping,
and maybe a possible recreation of the Footloose dance scene.
Maybe.
Who knows? I don't know. I'm just guessing. I mean, considering who they're going after, and considering what a certain Captain Star-Lord's favorite movie is.
Yes, sir, Bob. Oh, but yeah, it oh my, looks to be a jolly good time had by all, unless you're Kevin Bacon.
Right.
Then you may be questioning your life choices.
And
your home security systems.
Yeah.
So there is that. And then in the world of Doctor Who, this is exciting
Yes.
for a number of us.
Uh-huh.
So first of all, going into the 60th, and of course with a new Doctor, we've got a new logo.
Yes.
An updated show logo, looking very old school.
I love it. I love it. I
You
love it.
too. Very reminiscent of logos past.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that being said, when Doctor Who returns next year, a year from now, for the 60th, if you after bouncing around from place to place to place to place for the last since Doctor Who returned, essentially or since I guess really streaming became a thing.
True. Yeah. That's more aptly put.
Yeah, streaming wasn't really a thing in 2005 when Doctor Who returned. But once streaming became a thing, after bouncing around from places like Netflix and BritBox and where else is Doctor Who been?
What how is it? HBO Max?
It's on HBO Max now.
Yeah, I think that's on now.
BritBox is more classic Who and
yes,
not new Who. Yeah. So
yeah. But I mean, just if somebody asks you, hey, where can I watch Doctor Who? It's like classic or new?
Right.
Which doctors?
Uh-huh. Yes.
Do you care about choosing which story you watch?
Right. Well, then there's the streaming Pluto, which has its own schedule, but it doesn't go in chronological order.
Yeah. So you don't have any choice on what it is you're watching. That was my point.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's just very like Doctor Who, because gets back in people's radar, and then you start seeing posts on social media. People are like, oh, I wanted to watch that, where can I watch it? And you're like, hold on a minute, let me check the map.
Yeah. Let me check the updated bus route here.
Yeah, exactly. So starting next year, at least with the new stuff, because we don't have confirmation yet on whether the previous seasons of New Who and or Classic Who will be eventually available or not. But at least when Doctor Who returns next year, it is now going to be on Disney Plus. Is the TLDR, at least for anyone outside of the UK. Now, if you're in Britain, you've got your own thing, because their TV is just kind of weird to begin with, because they pay for their TV, but then they don't have commercials. So and then they have their own different streamings. So, but yeah, Doctor Who is going to Disney Plus.
And here's hoping it'll drop at the exact same time it airs over in the UK. Yeah,
that's the thing. That's the thing is like, is this going to be just for streaming? So like, are we still have to wait till like the day after, like you do on like iTunes, or is it going straight there and bypassing BBC/BBC America completely,
which
as far as TV is concerned? So there's still a lot of questions that we don't have answers to.
I mean, to tell you the truth, at the status of BBC America lately, I wouldn't be too disappointed. I mean, it hasn't.
I mean, I
I
pretty much rely on like the digital. As soon as it's available on digital, wherever. It is again. It's changed so much over the years.
I do the digital too. I'll try to catch that BBC America. If I don't, it's like, okay, I'll just catch what I can, then
Mhm.
make sure my season pass is ordered, and as soon as it drops, I can watch it commercial free.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we still have some answers. So we need some answers to some things, but
Yeah.
yeah. But I'm not complaining.
No.
It's
It's
Doctor Who.
going to be a nice one-stop shop for us fandom people.
Yeah. Yeah. So yay. It's a something.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a something. So I'll take that as a good sign.
Yes.
So, well, speaking of Doctor Who, as I mentioned, it is now November, so new
Yes.
month means book club updates.
Yes. Okay. Like I said last month, we had a tie. So this month's book is Doctor Who Recorded Times and Other Stories. It's a 6th Doctor Adventure Big Finish audio. And then December's book poll. Just a second. I'm pulling that up. And things are cooperating. Yay! Yay first. All right, so our choices for December are Demons of Red Lodge, which is another grouping of big audio or Big Finish audios, Shroud of Sorrows, The Legend of Camelot, and a newer Big Finish, but I thought maybe with the theme of December, Blood on Santa's Claw, which is a collection of stories featuring your favorite doctor, Rachel. Whatever will Rachel vote for?
I have no idea.
So those are the choices. You
just
can
like
vote
when
once.
Charles was like, "Hey, Rachel, next season of Next Stop Everywhere. Which episodes do you want to be on?" Gee, I don't know.
Twist my arm, and my response is, "I hope it didn't hurt too much."
Mhm. Slightly twisting my arm while shoving leftover Halloween candy in my mouth.
Sign me up.
Yeah. Like, oh gee, whichever will I pick?
Yes. 6 or 12. Volcano knows those. Why not both?
Exactly.
Oh, do we know you, Rachel, or do we know you?
You don't know me at all. Oh my. So yeah, go to Goodreads, links on our website.
Yes.
And also on Facebook. So go make your choices and join the discussions. Oh.
And for those of you who are wondering, it's like, hey, how come the Fourth Doctor as Robin Hood book isn't posted yet? I'm still waiting to make sure that physical copies are available to order, purchase, pick up in library stateside for a bit, so it takes a while.
Yep.
There is that.
Yep.
Once that happens, it's fair game to go on the poll.
Yep. Cool. And then real quick feed updates. Latest episode of Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, is out and available for you to listen to, where we've wrapped up the 1980s, as crazy as that seems. But we did with the 1989 Best Picture winner, Driving Miss Daisy. So we get to start the 90s next week with Kevin Costner's Rear End. Yay.
Tatanka. Tatanka.
So there's that. So moving on to feedback. So it's feedback from Shalane. And then let's see, she's got several points here. She says she suggests that we should talk about some of our favorite Nickelodeon TV shows that we loved when growing up.
Ooh.
Growing up being relative.
Let's say
What do you mean growing up? I haven't grown up yet. It says she's excited for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania because she loves Ant-Man. The trailer looks funny. She says that Spirited Away was the when she first saw it, she thought it was very interesting. She thought it was like kind of like Alice in Wonderland. And she says that she's actually seen some fan art that is a crossover of Spirited Away and Alice in Wonderland. I could see that.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. She says, speaking of Lilo and Stitch and other actors who were also in Spirited Away, she says David Ovden Steers played Kamaji, the long-armed man. Yeah. And then Jason Marsden, who voices Haku, and Suzanne Plachette, they were both in the second Lion King.
Oh, cool. Suzanne Plachette, I know from watching reruns of Bob Newhart.
Yeah, exactly. And then speaking of like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, in this case 7 degrees of Jason Marsden, she has a friend that she went to college with. His grandparents owned a voice acting school in California, and Jason was one of their students.
Oh, cool.
And then she says there are 2 dub versions of My Neighbor Totoro. But both have voices that we'd recognize. One version has the gal who does the voice, did the voice of Angelica Pickles for Rugrats. And then the other one has one of the Fanning sisters and Leah Salonga. So interesting. We have to get, whenever we get around to doing My Neighbor Totoro, I guess Chrissy can tell us which version we should watch. And then she mentioned some other actors in some other Studio Ghibli movies, because like we said, they do some like really like recognizable names occasionally. So, but then she says Howl's Moving Castle would make a good Halloween movie because there's a witch and a scary bird. And then she says that she was Kiki for Halloween one time.
Oh, cool.
She plans on doing Princess Mononoke at some point in the future.
Ooh.
So that's cool. And then we've got some feedback from Erin.
Yay.
And Erin's subject line is time for a rewatch. Erin says, hello to my Fiveish hosts. It's funny that Spirited Away was the subject this week because this is the 3rd podcast this month I've heard discuss it.
Whoa, talk about serendipity. No, we did not have a great big podcasters meeting like, hey, guess what we're doing?
Yeah. Yeah, if those meetings happen, we've not been invited to them yet. So
No.
Pure coincidence. How do we get on that invite list? So, yeah.
Right.
That I watched it years ago and didn't like it, but I chalked that up to being too young to understand it. My now brother-in-law had brought it over to show my sister on one of their date nights, and me being about 13 thought, oh, a cartoon for teens. I want to watch it. I was bored out of my mind because I didn't understand what anime actually is. I have a slightly better understanding now, but I still haven't watched much to really appreciate it. Shout out to Death Note. The one I love the most. So, having said that, I think the podcast gods are trying to tell me to give Spirited Away another chance. Maybe. Also, despite not liking it at the time, I'm always pleased when Disney/Pixar doesn't win animated feature at the Oscars. Nothing against Disney and Pixar, but it always irks me that animation is synonymous with children. That is true. There's a lot of great animated movies for adults, but as soon as I mention animation, they get scoffed at. That's why I like that this one. I could almost argue it's the only winner not to be marketed as a kids movie. I like many of them, but still, that's my gripe. Yeah, I mean, at least kid and or family, which most of the time family equals parents and little kids. Not even if there's maybe older siblings, there's always at least one younger that's part of the mix, and therefore it needs to be a appropriate, air quotes, for all ages. So yeah, I can totally see that. And I other than I don't know about the marketing. I would say that probably Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I can't imagine that it was marketed very heavily towards little kids. I don't think. But I don't really pay attention to marketing. So, especially if it's marketing that involves enticing people with little kids, because that's not me. So, but then again, Disney, pretty much has me by the wallet 99% of the time anyway. So they don't really need to market to me because I'm already completely indoctrinated.
Same.
So, but yeah, I mean, it is always interesting when especially considering if you look at, I mean, the whole reason that we have an animated feature category is because of Disney. All of a sudden we going from war movies and all these different types of movies being nominated for Best Picture to boom, Beauty and the Beast, and everyone's like, oh no, we can't have that. Let's do an animated feature category. So, because the Academy doesn't like upsetting the status quo, for lack of a better phrase. Something that gets brought up a lot on Gold Standard. Kind of why we do the show in the first place. So, but yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from, Aaron. So we appreciate the feedback as always. So, all right. Time to move on to this week's main topic, which this poor topic keeps getting shuffled around because stuff keeps happening.
Yes. I mean, been, like, on the schedule since like the summertime.
Yeah, like we've had this. We put on the schedule like
third time's the charm.
Yeah, and like something happened, and I don't remember why it got moved the first time, and then we had it on the schedule again, and then the Queen died. So and that kind of wonked up our schedule. So yeah, we're finally getting around to Only Murders in the Building, which I remember when Disney announced this at D23 Expo a couple years ago. I think. And I remember talking about it when we talked about like the D23 announcements and mentioning, oh, there's going to be this show with Steve Martin and Martin Short and Selena Gomez. That sounds interesting. And we just kind of moved on because there were all sorts of other things, like all the MCU stuff that we were like, you have my attention. And then Only Murders dropped, and then people started watching it, and they're like, actually, this is kind of good. So I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. It's one of those where it's like this I don't want this is not intended to be like an insult in any way, but it's almost better than it has any right to be.
Yes. Rachel, I agree. And kudos to Disney and Hulu for deciding to run commercials on TV, because it completely escaped my radar until Mom was just like, where do we find this Hulu? Do we have it? And I'm just like, I put their subscription on pause. I can unhit the pause button. We can watch this. And I think the first couple episodes had dropped, and after we watched them, we were just like, we were hooked. And Mom's like, why isn't there anymore? I'm like, they're doing the non-Netflix where they drop one every week. We have to wait.
Which kind of sucks, just a little.
Yes, just a little, but then in a way, it's kind of like, yay, good. I can think and not be okay. All done. Now what? We wait.
Yeah, because like on the surface, like I said, when they made the announcement that this was going to be a thing, and I'm like, that's an interesting comment. First of all, I mean, you put Martin Short and Steve Martin together, it's going to be funny.
I mean,
because those two have been working together. Yeah.
Part 1 and
3
2.
Amigos.
Yes.
Yeah. Those two have been working together for ages and are absolutely hilarious together. But it's like, Selena Gomez?
At first, I mean, she can hold her own against those two.
Oh, yeah. And the thing is, like, Selena Gomez, I've not really seen her in a whole lot other than the occasional episode of Wizards of Waverly Place back in the day. So she has a very seemingly distinct acting style and way of speaking. She kind of has this, at least in this, she's this like very like almost monotone, seemingly uninterested with anything going on around her, just kind of, when we first meet her, she's walking down the street with the big Beats headphones on, seemingly blocking out the rest of the world and looking at her phone and texting whoever, looking at Instagram or whatever it is. So she plays like based on her age, she's not a millennial. She would be Gen Z, I think.
Right.
And then you've got these two guys who are really elder boomers. Because they're a little too old to be boomers. So but it's that idea of these two guys who are significantly older, and then you have this young gal who's in her late 20s, early 30s, and this huge generational gap just based on age. And then you figure life experience it's like they should not have anything in common, and they really don't. The only thing that brings them together is they all find out that they're all fans of the same true crime podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what brings them together. And then this building in New York, this apartment building that this thing is all centered around, the Arcadia, which, there's a lot of New York buildings that have names like the Dakota, where John Lennon and Yoko Ono still live. Yoko Ono still lives there. So, it's one of those older apartments. Probably actually was a hotel back in the day, and they're gonna convert it into apartments. But then this murder happens in this building, and they all decide that they want to play true crime detective. and decide to create their own podcast in the process to work their way. It's like, they've got, because they're right. I mean, there's all of these true crime podcasts out there, and I would think a good majority of them are all kind of like cold cases.
Right.
So they're cases in the past. Their idea is, let's do a true crime podcast of a crime that just happened and is actively being investigated. It just so happens that they end up being way more involved than they originally thought.
Right.
They thought they were just going to be like bystanders because this just happened to happen in the building where they live. And then it turns out that actually Mabel, who's played by Selena Gomez, actually knew the victim really well. Actually. Right. So.
And the victim had a connection to Sting, and they thought he was the.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, you've got these three actors who are very recognizable in their own right. And then it's set in New York City, so ripe with opportunity to have all sorts of recognizable faces show up. And a lot of the people we see are playing characters, like Nathan Lane. He played Teddy. This Greek restaurateur who makes dips that Martin Short's character Oliver really loves. The man does not eat regular meals. He just eats like anything he can dip.
Right, yeah.
Like a chip or a piece of pita bread or some vegetables. He's down for it. And then you've got Tina Fey as Cinda Canning, who hosts the podcast that they all bond over. And so you got some recognizable faces that are playing characters, but then you have other faces come in that are playing fictionalized versions of themselves. So yeah, we get Sting, who is playing Sting, but it's a fictionalized version of himself. You get Amy Schumer in season 2 playing a version, a fictionalized version of herself. So yeah, it's just it's one of those shows where you kind of just have to watch it to really get and kind of understand how good it is and why it's so good. Because it's kind of hard to explain, because you need to watch these characters interact with each other and see that chemistry and hear how good and smart the writing is.
Yes.
Because murder mysteries obviously are tale as old as time. I mean, Angela Lansbury just passed away. How long did Murder, She Wrote run for? Forever. Because people love a good murder mystery. But then to make it modern and it involve podcasting, which podcasts have been part of some modern media to a point, but it's never been like, it's kind of a side thing. Like there's a character in Ghostbusters Afterlife that is a podcaster. So but it's not a major part of the plot. But the fact that they're listening to podcasts, you've got our characters creating their own podcasts. Eventually they end up getting fans of their podcasts, and they have merch and stuff. Like, it's so accurate to what it's like to be a podcaster these days. And obviously we would know.
Yes.
I mean, there's several times where I'm like, oh, that's so accurate, it hurts. Oliver pulling his phone out so he can quickly record something because he doesn't have like his equipment on him. I'm like,
yes.
Yeah. I've had those moments where it's like, I need to be able to record.
Yeah. Or let's run that one more time. That didn't sound good.
Yeah. Or it's like, I need to make a mental note so I don't forget for later. So it's like, but yeah, it's just I don't know. It's the thing. Like I said, it's I don't know if this is necessarily something that you can really just like try to explain. It's really one of those things where it's like you need, and I like it'll get occasionally it'll pop up. Like I've mentioned it to Chauncey several times that he needs to watch it, and he's all like, okay, I'll get to it eventually. It's very much, I think it's going to be like Stranger Things, but in reverse, where he was like, you really need to watch Stranger Things. And I'm like, oh, I'll get to it eventually. And then I did. And I'm like, oh, this is so good. Kind of hoping Only Myrtles will be the same way. Like occasionally somebody will like, I'll be, chatting with whoever, and it's come up a few times. And I'll be like, oh my God, it's so good. And the other person will be like, I know. It's like those of us that have seen it get it.
Yes.
But those that haven't are like, I don't.
Of us.
Yeah, the others are just like, I don't understand. Because again, I'm sure looking at it at a surface level of like, how good could a show with two old aging comedians and a former Disney Channel star actually be?
Actually pretty darn good.
Yeah. That's the thing, is it actually is pretty dang good.
I mean,
So,
lightning in a bottle.
yeah, and the fact that we, that we got the second season, and we already know we're getting a third season, I think is great.
Yes. Considering the way they ended the last episode of season 2, oh yes, please, there needs to be
yeah, well, even the way they ended season 1 with Mabel covered in blood, standing over a dead body.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, I hope this comes back. But yeah, this and they use this whole, as the audience is watching, trying to figure out who done it and why. It gives an opportunity for us to really learn not just about our three main characters, but a lot of the peripheral characters as well. I think that's it. One of the other things that's really good about it is it recognizes that the color and the personality doesn't come just from our three leads.
Right.
It comes from all of the other people. So that, like, there's a reason Nathan Lane has been nominated as like a guest guest role. Why Selena Gomez has not been nominated
beyond me. Yeah,
is beyond me, because both Steve Martin and Martin Short have been nominated for like Emmys for this, but Selena just gets skipped over. Like, I don't even know what's going on there. But it's the building itself. It's very fleshed out and full of character, and that's what makes it so intriguing and so enticing to want to watch. Like there's an episode in season 1 that kind of is a day in the life of Teddy's son.
Yes. Oh,
who's
that was
completely
awesome.
deaf. So there's no sound pretty much the entire episode. Because you're experiencing his day from his perspective, and it doesn't seem like that should work, but it does.
Yep.
We get the episode, Bunny's last day.
Right. Yeah.
2, where you follow her around, and you occasionally will see our 3 main leads if she happened to cross them that day.
Yep.
But I mean, we could easily go, almost an entire episode without seeing our 3 main leads, because they don't necessarily need to be the focus.
Yep.
Everyone from the doorman to just learning about the Arcadia itself. We get introduced to Charles's ex-girlfriend's daughter.
Yep.
Who he became very attached to when he was involved with her mother, who came to visit him enough that she knows all the hidden passages in the building.
Yep.
So we get to experience the building itself, and what makes it tick. And how it works. And then you start involving things like, the cops, the police officers, which, Detective Williams.
Oh, yeah.
Don't want to get on her bad side.
Oh, no.
At all.
And she knows her show tunes.
Yes, but she knows her show tunes. And then we get the piece of shit cop from season 2, and I'm like, I don't like you.
Yeah.
So
and then Bunny's bird, Mrs. Gambolini. I know who did it.
Why did nobody actually ever think to ask the bird who did it, to see if the bird wasn't just pulling their leg?
I thought they tried. And I thought it came back with a very colorful, metaphoric response.
Well, I know that
Emily
definitely had some colorful responses, because Bunny was not a fan, especially of Oliver.
No.
So yeah. Oh my goodness.
I mean, I'm sure Whiplash is looking for another bird. Pawn Mrs. Gambolini off on him.
Yeah, really. Like, surely New York's got one of like those restaurants, like was it Dick's Last Resort, where all the waiters are intentionally rude to you. That's where Mrs. Gambolini needs to go.
Yes.
Is someplace like that. Fit right in. So, but yeah, the of course it's filmed in New York. So you can go visit some of the locations. The exterior for the Arconia, I keep calling it the Arcadia because I think that's an actual building. But this is the Arconia. Is at the Belnord, which is at 225 West 86th Street in Manhattan. So if you find yourself in New York on the west side, you can go swing by and take yourself a selfie outside the Arconia. So there's some a few little kind of Easter eggs utilizing utilizing some of our actors' talents. Like we see Steve Martin playing the concertina. And as I think a lot of people know, Steve Martin is actually a very accomplished musician.
Oh yes.
Not just with the concertina, he plays the banjo on the guitar and various instruments. So it was not a huge stretch to be like, hey, Steve, how about playing the concertina? So there's that. The character and show that Charles used to be on, because Charles Hayden Savage, played by Steve Martin, is a former TV star who was on a cop show back in the 70s called Brazos. So kind of a, obvious, the shows back in like the 70s and 80s, like Miami Vice and the Heat of the Night and stuff like that.
Kamish, Columbo,
exactly.
Kojak.
Yeah, that was like the height of his career. He's been kind of sailing on that ever since. But Brazos is the name of one of two rivers that flow through Waco, Texas, which is where Steve Martin was born.
Cool. And we can't forget Charles Hayden's stand-in, played by Jane Lynch.
Yes. His stunt double is Jane Lynch.
Yeah. I mean, she's a hoot. I mean, if you loved her in Glee, I mean, this is an even more perfect role for her, I think.
Yeah. Again, one of those where it's like, hey, wait a minute, I know you type things. So, and since hopefully we'll see her again in season 3 at some point, now that she's not doing that run of Funny Girl anymore. That's gonna be an interesting discussion when we do Funny Girl for Patreon on Gold Standard. But Jane Lynch. Oh God, who else?
Oh shoot. Bunny's mother.
Oh yes. Who actually turns out not to be Bunny's mother at all. She turns out to be the artist instead. What's her face?
Shirley MacLaine.
There we go. Like, damn it. I could see her. I could see her face in terms of endearment, but could not think of her name.
And I was thinking of her as Weezer and Steel Magnolias, and I'm just like, come on, brain, think.
Yeah. Shirley MacLaine. She makes an appearance. So, it's just it's kind of a who's who of folks. And what's I mean, obviously you get you want people that are appropriate and can play the part, but it is kind of interesting that some of the people that we have pop up, because this is set in New York, are all people who have Broadway experience.
Yes.
Like Jane Lynch and Nathan Lane.
Yes.
So it's like they're filming in New York and they're like, oh, who's got a break? Who's got a break in a run on at the moment that we could borrow for a few days to do a little something. So give it Sting. We had Jane Lynch, Shirley MacLaine. So if you're a soap opera fan, Mark Consuelos,
Yes.
aka Mr. Kelly Ripa, played Mabel's father in flashbacks. So yeah, I like that they. Again, this is kind of an assumption from me, but I'd like to think that they are confident enough in the show that it wasn't going to get like canceled right away, that they weren't giving us everything about these characters right up front so that we could learn about them as the seasons progress. Like even by the end of season 1, we still don't know a whole lot about Mabel.
No, we don't.
And a lot of that is because Mabel herself is still, even though she finds herself becoming friends with these guys, she's still very closed off.
I mean,
you keeps to herself.
And granted, even you can say this season we find a little bit more about her, but still there's stuff we don't know about her.
Yeah, like there's a lot of stuff we learn, but it's all in her remembering stuff in flashback. So it's stuff that we're learning about her, but her friends aren't necessarily learning about.
True. And we don't know how reliable a narrator she is as well. So we could be getting some.
Well, and part of what's interesting though is like we don't know how reliable Mabel is being as a narrator. But part of the premise in season 2 is even Mabel is not even sure how reliable she's being.
Right. Which is a breath of fresh air because normally we don't get that.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of times it can be like, should I trust you? I don't know. But then when the character's like, I don't even trust myself. I'm like, well, then I guess I'm not alone.
That makes 2 of us. Okay.
Yeah. That makes all of us that are watching at the moment. So, but it's also because, you know me, I like to play armchair psychiatrist. Sometimes I find it also fascinating. Mabel's whole thing that, she has, issues with her memory because of trauma, which is a very real thing. Where for whatever reason, and it there doesn't seem to be any sort of like scientific or medical rhyme to reason, like, if you experience this kind of trauma, you're going to experience this kind of memory loss or whatever. It's just a crapshoot. It's just however your body decides to try to protect itself from whatever trauma it's experiencing. So in Mabel's case, her early trauma was her father dying, watching her father die slowly, essentially, of cancer, I think, is what killed him.
Right.
And then the whole thing with Bunny and the fact that she can't really remember what happened that night. So it becomes a kind of literal and metaphysical puzzle for her to solve, which was kind of her and her dad's thing, was they like to solve puzzles together.
Right.
So she literally kind of has to go in kind of like Sherlock with this mind palace, but in this case, instead of just going and plucking something off the shelf, she's having to put the puzzle together, not knowing actually what the finished picture is going to look like.
Right.
She just knows it's something bad that her brain was like, no, you don't want to think of this. It's bad. It'll make you feel bad.
And I think too, she got so good at doing the puzzles. Her dad's like, well, here's a challenge. Let's do it up. let's put the puzzle together, but upside down where we can't see the picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even more so.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I find that absolutely fascinating from a psychological perspective. So, and then you've got Charles, which his father was an actor, but it was never really got anywhere with it. But he was an aspiring actor, and then his father went to jail, and then that whole thing there. Then it turns out that his dad ended up going to jail for something,
Mm-hmm.
not so. I mean, he still did something bad, but his reasoning was not necessarily so bad.
Right.
So he's dealing with that, and then potentially a resurgence in his career when they decide to bring the Brazos TV show back, but he's going to be playing an older Brazos.
Yeah.
That whole thing of like rebooting something, and then do you bring the old cast back? Because we've seen that in real life. And then you've got Oliver, who is a producer and director, who's struggling just to find work, while also trying to keep a relationship with his son, who is a school teacher and has no aspirations whatsoever for fame and fortune and all that stuff. He just wants to teach kids, although he ends up getting roped into doing a elementary school production of The Wizard of Oz.
Yes. And winding up doing a pretty darn good job of it.
Yeah. And then learning that he and Teddy, Nathan Lane's character, have known each other for a long time, and there's some potential bad blood there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then Eddie or Teddy and his son have their own secrets. So it's just, it's written so well because it's just got all of these layers, and you just have to watch to and sometimes it's relevant what you discover about people.
Mm-hmm.
It's relative to the overall like plot of solving the whatever the mystery is that particular season, and sometimes it's not relevant, at least not then. It could be potentially relevant maybe down in a different season, or it could just be something that is just information to help for world building and character development, and has nothing to do with murder or other crimes. So, and there's still a whole lot that we don't know about our characters.
Right.
So, I mean, and then we get a time jump.
Yeah.
At the end of season 2, like almost a year has passed or something like that without any murders or any, and then it ends on a death. Yeah. Because of course, you gotta leave it on the cliffhanger. So,
and the death of a very interesting named guest star.
Yes, who I'm sure we'll see again in flashbacks.
Oh yeah,
leading up to his death. But yeah, for a second there, I wasn't sure if they were playing themselves or if they were playing a pure fictional character, and I guess like playing an actual fictional character, so they're not playing themselves, but still it's like okay. I see what we're doing here. I'm picking up what you're putting down. But yeah, only murders in the building. You need to watch it. Like I said, if obviously if you're a podcaster, you're gonna find some things funnier than others. Some of the jokes may go over your head because they're very niche podcasting. related jokes.
Yes. It's like, oh yeah, I caught that reference. Yes, I understand.
Yes, we're all like Steve Rogers. Like, I understand that reference. But even if you're not a podcaster, like if you're a fan of shows like Murder, She Wrote and like Diagnosis Murder, where you kind of have people getting involved in solving crime that aren't like the cops,
the civilians.
This is in the same vein. I would say it's kind of a very similar cloth to things like that, you know. So, you know, it's not Law and Order.
No.
It's definitely more Jessica Fletcher or, you know, Dick Van Dyke solving murders. So.
Yes.
So, but yeah, and we know that there's a third season coming. So hopefully, if they're I could assume that they're going to stick to a similar release schedule.
Yeah.
So fall.
That's what I'm thinking.
Late
That's
summer,
kind of
early
what
fall,
little I've seen.
Yeah, it was the end of August for season 1, end of June for season 2. So I would assume that will continue to be the case. So yeah, so Selena is usually is posting stuff on social media, but she has not. Doesn't look like, at least on her Instagram, it doesn't look like she's posted anything on set while filming season 3. But she is young. She may be posting on TikTok. Hold on a moment.
Rachel's gonna quick check the feed.
Yes, I'm gonna check Selena's feed. So well, she was in New York as of 3 days ago.
Okay.
So I guess we'll say. I don't know what that means, but we can only hope. So I guess wait and see. So stay tuned until we get news, I guess, of when the next season is coming. So I hope it sticks with a similar schedule. It's a good late summer going into fall.
Oh yeah.
Thing to watch. So especially having the week by week releases. So
yes,
I do. It's almost like watching regular TV.
And appointment TV at that.
Yes. So yeah, Only Murders in the Building. Give it a shot. I think you would be genuinely surprised at how good it actually is. And the nice thing is all the full length, all the episodes of the first 2 seasons are out, so you don't have to wait like the rest of us. So you can just binge it and find out who done it right away. Anything else?
Nope, I agree with you, Rachel. Give it a shot. I mean, there's some good score music, and then I mean, some of the other incidental music that they pull in is cool too. A certain Simon and Garfunkel song,
yes,
that everybody winds up singing.
Yep. Yep. Very good use. So lots of, again, references to theater, especially musical theater, and Oliver's many failed attempts at bringing things to the stage that probably should not be put on Broadway. Well, if any of our listeners want to chime in, give their 2 cents about Only Murders in the Building, or maybe just other stuff that our 3 leads have been in. Or if you're a podcaster yourself and if you have an opinion on how podcasting was portrayed, I'd like to think that none of us are like Cinda.
No.
Please and thank you. If any of us ever come off as a Cinda Canning type, please let us know. You can send us feedback. You can email us fivishfangirls@gmail.com, or you can connect with us via our various social media accounts. All the links to those are on our website, which is the fivishfangirls.com, because we're pretty much everywhere. And of course, also on our website, link to the Goodreads Book Club, so you can go vote and join in the discussions. There's also links to various ways you can support us with your moolah. If you're so inclined, you can do a single donation on Ko-fi. You can become a regular supporter on Patreon, or if you want to get something in return, you can buy merch via Redbubble. So those are all available to you. So, all right. So with that, no dead bodies, so we're good. We can sign off for this week.
This is Whitney Douglas saying goodnight.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm hungry. Anyone have any dip? You have been listening to the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. You can find more episodes and information at thefivishfangirls.com. Any and all books, movies, games, and any other forms of media mentioned are owned and operated by the respective copyright holders. No copyright infringement is intended or implied. If you wish to support the show, the easiest way is to leave us a rating and review. More ratings and reviews will make it easier for others to find the show. If you wish to support us monetarily, you can do so at patreon.com/Fiveish Fangirls Podcast. All money goes towards fees and equipment to keep the show going. For official Fiveish Fangirls merchandise, visit redbubble.com/people/Fiveish Fangirls. We love hearing from our listeners and encourage feedback. You can email us at fivishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Fiveish Fangirls. Thank you so much for listening, and may the squee be with you.